What are your 9 points?
Well, 9 for the 6, I'm trying to bring into focus my platform. And there's probably more than 9 points that I would like to address, obviously. More than 9 major responsibilities you might actually develop headings for. But 9 for the 6, the 416 area code is now called the 6 by many people. And I have 9 particular points to address how I'd like to, fix the city and make it livable so people want to live here. And then, as the mayor of the city, I had to break it down. So if you want to ask me specific questions about the 9, go right ahead.
What is your affordable housing plan for Toronto?
Okay, from single dwellings to detached to a number of different definitions of home ownership out there. There's over 1.2 million dwellings that you might renovate into an apartment. I want to platoon together planning, fire, inspection, and any other services in the City of Toronto, and beef up that inspection service as well while we're at it. So we can go to these people and can canvass them and say, are you an empty nester, someone who's afraid to get a lease and talk to individuals who are outside individuals you don't know to rent? We can become a partner with you and help you renovate. And I'll give you up to $20,000 of a microloan you'll pay back in the rent as you collect it to the city, and you could maybe renovate up to the cost of $40,000. We could provide a lease, a standard boiler lease, and we could give people the comfort of knowing they have a good tenant and they're safe. The thing we'd make sure is that the people that own the buildings aren't Airbnb people, absentee landlords. Therefore, we could get people an income, and we basically make sure that the lease would be for 15 to 20% less, lower than market value for at least 5 years. So that's something we could do because we have the buildings already, and there are people that are going to need income streams, and we have the inspection and the services in the city. Okay, what we have are people that come to the city with plans, and often these plans take away affordable housing and replace it with higher density, and it's often not affordable or not even housing. That has to stop. So they're going to have to redraw their plans, and if, say, for example, just keep it simple, if there's 20 people in any type of housing that's affordable and they're being displaced, then they have to actually, their plan has to offer those people something similar and those exact people so that they're not displaced. So it's just not about how much housing we're creating that's affordable and how we affect the market, maybe my apartment plan. It's about making sure we don't lose affordable housing. How do we do that? We deny permits, whether it be a building permit, demolition permit, any other way legally possible, until we grind things to a halt. That's my phrase, stop the clock ticking. We slow down long enough to realize that we're taking away affordable housing and just deny them at a council level, permit level, planning level, and then push them back into the bureaus of the government like the OMB, and then the province might start talking to us. We need respect. That's how we're going to get it, hardball. If they can't move, well, they'll start talking to you.
What is the 20% foreign property fee?
Foreign property fee. Well, at one time, individuals were taxed 15%, then it was raised to 20% by the province if they invested money in real estate in Canada here, in developments like condominium developments, whatnot. And I believe now it's been up to 20%, and I believe individuals are barred at a certain point. I don't care whether they're individually investing their money at this point in time into a corporation that's an Ontario corporation. If the money for developments is foreign sourced and it's within the boundaries of Toronto, the province is making money off our backs, and we're not getting that money back. They're swimming in revenue right now, and they put out the biggest budget they ever had, but it's not being given back to us. So I'm going to charge my own fee. And whether that's a permit fee that's a new fee, or we just actually want a percentage of the cost of the project, we're going to get it any legally means possible, and we won't have to ask the province for that money. If that seems intrusive to free enterprise, too bad, because we're not getting our money's worth. The province will have to rethink what they're doing there. That's what that fee is about. Making people good corporate citizens, getting the money that Torontonians are paying back into their hands.
How would you get the traffic moving by changing the TTC?
Well, we can't stop the construction projects that people already have permits for. We can't stop the provincial projects like Metrolinx we've agreed to. But what we can do is reorganize the TTC. Personally, I'm going to be blunt. The way that we've repurposed from property line to property line every street and major thoroughfare in the city, so that we're trying to accommodate bikes, walking, parking, cars, and TTC and deliveries, it's not working. And the one big problem with the TTC in the downtown core specifically, then some of these extend these lines out into the east, west, north of the city, are the streetcars. And I hate to say it, the streetcars are something now that are not serving their purpose. They hold up traffic, and on some streets where there's only one lane and the streetcars are there and you've got barriers and parking, how did the fire department and police get through?
What do you mean by retiring in place for seniors?
Retiring in place is the modern concept, because we know now that we're in a crisis. There's not enough retirement spaces, and particularly spaces that people want. Remember, there's different levels. There's private, and then there's basic, where there's 4 in a room. Any way you look at it, particularly whether it's administered by the city or it's for-profit retirement residences, we're way behind and it's getting worse. So I want people to retire in place in their home. So I'd give people up to $20,000 again in a microloan to renovate their home. If they need a chair lift, if they're now in a wheelchair, if they need to fix how they put out the recycle bins, which are quite large. And when you're a senior and you're elderly, it's hard to get those out. When you need to get into your bathtub, or you need railings or whatnot in your house to make it safe. My father went through this. Something for your toilet. If you invest that money, you spend $20,000 on all that, we'll match it again to make sure that your house is livable for you. Because when you retire in place, it stabilizes our communities, because the seniors are the ones that are the fabric of society. But these homes are also targets in real estate. People buy these homes out for people, renovate them into, luxury homes, and it changes the nature of the neighborhood. These people that are part of the community move out, or they go into retirement situations that are not tenable. I want people to retire in place and stay citizens of Toronto and live a good life. They're on fixed incomes. We're punishing them. Why?
What is Indigenous reconciliation?
Meaningful Indigenous reconciliation is exactly that. When we have gatherings, we always thank Indigenous nations for being on the land. We thank them, but that's it. It's words. What I see, though, is a failure of the city to support Indigenous communities. I'd say that off-reservation Indigenous would be able to make this one of the biggest nations in the country, of all different backgrounds. And when they're off-reserve, people might need support. And, for example, I don't see why we don't give a meaningful park to Indigenous to actually be on the land and create events where we can come and listen to them. And I don't think we do that. Nathan Phillips Square, the Indigenous Garden. I mean, I was there at sunrise ceremony. I was the only candidate for mayor last year. Nobody else was there. They come later with a big tent, and it's more like Indigenous are licensed to be at the garden and the area that we've created for them. They use the tools that apparently council gave them. If you have video of that, you'll see the language. It's wrong. So an Indigenous park where we can go and listen and they can explain their story. Also, greater funding, because I think the numbers of Indigenous in the city are far greater, particularly homeless, than we know, and we're underfunding Indigenous service. Doing that properly would mean meaningful reconciliation.
What do you mean by value for tax dollars?
Value of tax dollars is a good one. You're going to have to make sure that there's performance clauses in any subcontractor's work that's done, whether they're doing extra work for the TTC cleaning anything, or they're contractors working on the roads, curbs, that we said the fortune is being spent on streetcars. So that needs to be audited. I need to beef up inspection, make sure that things are done on time, and if they're not, we need to start holding money in escrow where neighborhoods could be negatively or adversely impacted. That way, if people are not doing their job and they're not doing it on time, financially, they'll suffer the consequences. So, value for your tax dollar, you have to put these things in place to force people to perform up to the level of standards I think they should be. And I don't think they are, because that's why a lot of projects are running behind. Take a look at the Eglinton Metrolink thing. Whatever our support mechanism is, whoever had that contract, whatever involvement is, nobody knew until now that the concrete and the infrastructure for this wasn't right. We got to make sure this is inspected while it's happening. That's not the only example. I'm talking about everything in every neighborhood in this city. If we're not getting value for money, these people should be barred from further contracts in the future. We should expand the people on the list who we give contracts to. We want value for our dollar, or they're not going to get it. It's a privilege to make money off of the biggest producing market of GDP in the country, which is Toronto. 10 to 12%, depending on who you talk to.
How do you make sure money is spent properly in budgets?
We have to justify it's not justify the budget. We should go through the budget as current. There's things that say other. What is that? We need to find out where this is. And last of all, you release a budget on the city website. I'd like to go through it, and as I go through it, I'd like to have that feed be on social media, whether that be what's taking place in chambers, what's taking place in the committee. I want it to be transparent with the public. Because if people know that this money is being squandered and they're somehow a part of it, or they know that their job now has to earn its keep, so to speak, if you're on a pilot project and it's not going anywhere and it's being held over from budget to budget, from elected official or term to term, basically they'll be under pressure to make sure that they can explain why these things are costing money. So when we go through the budget line by line, we're going to find things. I know we are, and the public may not be happy about it. So I'll have to answer questions and be responsible, even if another elected official put this in place. And then you have to throw some of it out because we don't have the money. We're $1.6 billion over budget, and when there's not even a budget till next year. So what are we going to do? Someone's going to lose. It's musical chairs. Someone's going to sit down financially and have nothing to sit on. That's you, the public.
Why do you want to bring back live music to Toronto?
Well, first and foremost, we have to survive in the city financially, but it also has to be livable. That's my vision. I want the city to be livable. I want to live in it. I want you to live in it. I don't want you to feel like you want to move out. That seems to be the only option if you're not a lucky person who owns property or has a really great job. Because even people who are entry-level firemen, I hear, and other jobs that are professionals in medicine, they don't even have enough to rent in the downtown core. This is crazy. But one thing I can do, because it's my background, is I can put together plans to revive music and make your experience here enjoyable. A famous lyricist, Pi Dubois, once said, "We're just musicians here to thin the thickness of your skin," as it was sung in a Max Webster song. And it does make a difference in life. So it's my specialty. I can do that. I want to make Toronto kind of the Nashville of North America, or the new Nashville of North America, and the Nashville of Canada. Ultimately, Nashville positioned itself to be a music mecca for many reasons: recording, live shows. I want to work with coffee houses to give them microloans to get acoustic artists, unplugged artists and that, and foster singer-songwriters and that. Then they can move on to larger venues. Also bring international acts in and bring big concerts to the city, which I think I can do. I ran a company out of England, an international amplifier company, and I know these people.
What's your views on bike lanes?
Okay, for now, we need to reassess the bike lanes we got. So we need to freeze all new bike lanes until we assess the ones that are there. Some, I think, they're in place, are not working. Others are. So you need to also gather data in the winter, which I don't believe they do. They only do it in the summer or the months of good weather, which doesn't really describe how those lanes impact the usage around them and whether they're even being used. We're a winter country, that's a fact. But maybe establish more like an outer highway network along hydro corridors, especially in the north and east and the west. We have hydro corridors coming downtown. We could create bike highways. Then you could create, basically, I would like to see access off those main thoroughfares onto smaller roads where the bike lanes are working. And we got to include business as well, because when we take away parking, we disturb traffic, we're hurting small business. So if the bikes are going somewhere, the nature of where they're going is going to change. We'd have to have a complete town hall reckoning that would take the whole term as mayor to come up with a better plan. It's not working as it is now.
What do you have to say about the war on cars?
War on cars. Bikes versus cars. How about e-bikes versus pedestrians and bicycles? Like, this could go on forever. We're dividing ourselves up and we're not looking at the facts. First of all, we're a winter country. We're going to need cars. Cars will eventually become electric or hydrogen. They'll be efficient. And then how can you demonize them then? So we have to accommodate cars, bikes, and the biggest concern I have now is all the proliferation of very quickly moving e-bikes that can hit pedestrians and people on bicycles, let alone get hit by cars, because they don't obey the rules of the road. They're not licensed. So there is no war on cars. We just need to fix the roads we've got, get rid of bike lanes that don't work, create bike highways, find a solution for e-bikes, and then provide the infrastructure for electric vehicles that won't be polluting. This war on cars comes from the idea that cars are, a negative thing? They're a mode of transportation. Our country's thousands of miles wide. You're going to move in and out of the city. There's all kinds of deliveries. That's the way it is. So this 30-minute city, I don't believe in that concept. We're going to have to reassess this over the entire term as mayor to sort this mess. I have no war on cars. You need to make sure the cars can get through. Get rid of streetcars. That's one of the number one things.
What can you do about the backlog of city work? Well,
the backlog of work, from trash to potholes, you name it, right? You hear this all the time. It's got to be dealt with. But the one thing that has to be realistic is we're going to have a sliding scale, I think. So what we need to do is no new projects where we might actually disrupt infrastructure further. Stop the clock ticking on anything new where we can. But in the meantime, I would propose in year one, 90 days, set limits that you adhere to. And there's repercussions if they're not met. And year one, 90 days, year two, 60 days, year three, 30 days. And bring it down over the years, because there's just too much to fix all at once. So when I see other candidates promising everything will be done, it's just not going to happen when you're $1.6 billion over budget. And I don't think the nature of the province is going to change until the next election provincially. And that's years to come. You're going to probably likely be underfunded and begging for money. So we're just 90 days, year one, 60 days, year two, 30 days, year three. That would be the best way to be honest about it. And then get out of the office personally. with at least a third of my time, maybe half, and see what's going on to make sure it's done physically. Go myself.
Are you getting fair media coverage? Have you ever get invited for debates?
Well, quickly, the reason why there's so many candidates is just shows you how unhappy the public is. I believe a lot of people genuinely run because they care, like myself. The difference is we're all different. But the big problem is the media can't handle that, and there is no law, provincially or municipally, that there has to be a debate or who even stages it. It's at the will of the front runners and the willingness of the media if it's going to be news. So there's really nothing to make that happen. So it can't be handled, and I don't think there's an interest to handle it. So there's two ways to look at it. A, yeah, there might be 5 to 10 people that are front runners, they focus on them, and they feel that a lot of other people don't have anything to offer. But I don't believe that to be true. But on the other side of the coin, candidates can't complain because it's up to you to make sure that you get through. It's a tough one for me because I would say the media can't help the bias that they naturally have. And there is some suspicion, right? I mean, let's face it. On the honorary board of directors, I believe the last mayor was there with Rogers, and Rogers controls quite a bit of media. So you figure that out for yourself. But I'm going to get through one way or the other. The big problem is we need future municipal bylaws that make sure and mandate that there's debates and multiple debates with multiple topics and more than the 5 or 10 candidates. That's the only thing I can say about that. That would be what I would do if I was mayor. I'd make sure that the next election I'd have to face the music against everybody myself with no choice.
What works good in Toronto?
I think Toronto should be proud of the library system. As a matter of fact, a lot of other communities and cities in the world use the libraries as hubs for many things. I think we should have a maker printer in every single library. My son went to a school, they thought they'd have a maker printer, but there was no teacher there that knew how to run it. That's technology of the future. And we do have it in our system, believe it or not. You can actually rent maker printers, but they should be in every library. I think the libraries work well. You got all media, magazines, you got a place where you can work. It's excellent. We should expand on it and create more uses there as hubs. I'd say we should be very proud of the Toronto library system. And that's the only place I found any democratic control with regards to candidates being included in any type of event. If you used any of their spaces, you had to invite the other candidates. Actually, it's probably the most democratic, thoughtful, and useful place in the city, the library system.